do we have a show for you today? And this thing is going to be worth your time because we have gone through quite an ordeal to get here, haven't we, Shira?
You know, when this happens, it's because it's really worth it. We're pushing through.
We're pushing through, and all our effort is going to be redeemed for
Exactly.
the listener and for the viewer. By the way, welcome to the Media Roundtable. This is where we explore the business of trust in the new media economy. I am your host, Dan Granger, and in my spare time, I am the CEO of Oxford Road. Today, we have a very, very special guest who goes by the name Shira Lazar. She is the founder and CEO of What's Trending and Creators for Mental Health. She is also the co-architect of the Creator Bill of Rights. Hopefully, we'll get into that. She is an Emmy-nominated host. She also happens to host a podcast that is AI Download, and has done there's too much. There's just too much.
Sorry.
So Shira, welcome to the Media Roundtable. I don't know where to start with you is part of the problem, but that's because it's such gonna be such a
Well, I've
rich
been
conversation.
around. It isn't like I've been doing what I do for 20 years and I'm always pivoting, multi hyphenate. That's basically it. And always open to new chapters, clearly.
Well, thank you for what you're doing for the industry, and I like that you're not just like in it and doing a thing. You're also like building things and trying to create things that I think make the ecosystem more sustainable, and that's my love language. So I really appreciate that. As I've been scratching the surface on getting to know your story just in preparation for this. So, do you mind maybe just setting the table for us? Like, that's the bio I was able to get, but like when you think about your world today, like what are the key projects where you're spending your time?
Yeah, this is a big question, which sometimes makes me feel like, okay, information to better organize for the pitch because people just need that quick pitch. So I tell people I have three buckets of what I do. I have my digital media brand and publisher that I own since 2011, What's Trending. I have my personal brand, and then I have Creators for Mental Health now. And they all kind of bounce off each other and leverage each other. And the Creator Bill of Rights stuff and the work I'm doing with NAB Creator Council or even the Creators Guild of America, all of that is around my advocacy work, which obviously I use my personal brand for, but also Creators for Mental Health.
Got it. Okay, so
Yeah.
those are the key things. And if you can just talk a little bit about what's trending, can you just help the uninitiated get familiar with that business?
Yeah. So when we started, we were one of the first live streaming shows for the internet by the internet, basically, and covering social media as a filter for the news. And that is basically what the news is now. But at the time, it wasn't like newsrooms were looking at that as an editorial filter. And we were one of the first to do that. And also really interview social media people, YouTube stars, now influencers, etc., and look at them as really cultural mouthpieces, basically, and curators and voices to really give insights on what was happening in the news. No one was really taking them seriously. So we would have a show with an actress and or someone that's acting and online, and then a news reporter, and have them giving their hot take on what was happening. And no one had really ever seen that, right? And also, no one was really paying attention in the way we were to this digital landscape and the talent around it. We were looking at them as more than 15 seconds of fame. We were looking at them as the new wave of of talent and of Hollywood. And so that's really how What's Trending started as a talk show and then evolved into more of a news and media brand. And even over the years, we've had boutique agency services where because of our relationships with talent and influencers, we were doing very early influencer marketing and more boutique campaigns and curation of creators for brands, because we would work with brands at big events like South by or CES, do a pop-up studio, invite people in. We were the editorial partner, media partner. And then brands started saying, oh, well, what if you would introduce us to these talent so we could work with them after the fact. And of course, now we know what that is. That's influencer marketing. At the time, again, I was like, okay, well, you want me to introduce you to my network? You should pay me for that. So we got into the business of, you would say, boutique influencer marketing as well, using our editorial platform to amplify the work. So that's a bit of what's trending. And now, even as the space in the creator economy is getting more attention, we're looking at thought leadership, how we bring people together offline. We did an incredible event at South by Southwest called Creator Palooza, had a few hundred people attending, and really bringing together, brands, platforms, creators to connect, have conversations, make this space better, make more opportunities happen for all of us.
Well, and there's this idea that I think, this idea of co-creation, right? And I was at a brand innovators event just like a few weeks ago, and was listening to some marketers talking on stage about how they used to do a brief for the creator as a brand, and they would try to kind of shoehorn them into it. And I think a lot of the industry, a lot of the work we do through our agency, it's, you have your basic brief and you send that out and you kind of want them to adhere, right? But I
Yeah.
think when you can, as you can, the highest opportunity for the expression of an authentic relationship is that they're actually sitting on at the table together and working that out. And so it's interesting to hear that you're doing that, and we're trying to evolve our in-person activations as well, so that they really are collaborating and not just like meet and greet, here's our talking points, go.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. And I know this is the talking point on a lot of events and in the press, of like more long-term partnerships, more collaboration. And I see that. But also, everything feels these days also so last minute. And it's so hard to do that when you have last minute activations. Right. And so it starts becoming, well, this is our goal. This is our need. This is what,
And
and
we
then
launch on Tuesday.
you don't have enough time for the back and forth, or the right people aren't looped in. So before you know it, maybe the idea was pitched in one way and the creator said yes to that. But before we know it, other people are now stakeholders are coming in and the idea becomes something else. And then you just need to get it to the finish line. And that, of course, happens, especially this day and age where everything is just moving so quickly and budgets are changing. But it is hard to have a collaboration process in a really quick way like that. The best ones are when you have some time and everyone's, you have space to brainstorm. You have space to think and come back and say, is what would be authentic for my audience. Does that work? Even for creators, as much as this is our jobs and, we're professionals, we do this all the time. We know our audiences, et cetera. Like, I think everyone works differently. And sometimes you like have the idea right away and you're like, oh, this is how we want to do it. And a lot of times we need some like space. Even today, I had something and it was so little. This wasn't like a huge thing that I needed to do, but I started overthinking it. Before I knew it, like the day is gone and that video you're going to post, it's just like not getting up. And then you're getting anxiety and the paralysis. And you're like, can we just post this tomorrow? Like, I need more time, even though it's not even a big deal. So yeah, I think that people forget a lot of times also, some of us are working on our own a lot. And we just need to have space for all the types of creators in the ecosystem and understand how everyone works, just like in any business. And
Uh,
yeah, like I would just love everyone to give us more time to do better things together and then iterate,
and
you
actually
know?
do thoughtful work. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
Do
I
you
know.
do you feel
Yeah.
like, okay, so let's talk about the money, because this is really about the business of this
Yeah.
industry. And I feel like one of the challenges that happens is talent can be rightly slow to engage on spec projects, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of in this chicken or egg dance where it's like, okay, we really want the brand and the creator to sit down and come up with stuff and take their time about it. But then the talent's kind of like, are you going to write a check or not? And
Yeah.
oftentimes you've got agents in the middle where maybe the talent's not thinking like that, but the agent certainly is. And you don't know, um, you don't necessarily know what you're making or what how to put a price tag on that, so they don't necessarily know if it's going to be worth it for them. So how can the brands and the people in the middle of it, like us, get better at managing expectations so that you
Yeah.
can get to a real collaboration without the money being a hang up?
Yes. All right. There's different ways to do this. Either you kind of know overall that, we want to do a video, it's in the field, or you do it the way you typically do it. What do you cost? I mean, a lot of us have menus. What do you charge depending on the platform, depending on this, that? If it starts to be like, okay, this is going to be a much bigger custom project and we still need to figure it out. I mean, there's a reasonable back and forth of, here are our budgeted parameters. Does that work? And then what is the high level of what you would do? And I mean, yeah, you don't want to get into nonstop meetings and back and forths before having a contract. Like you could go back and forth like negotiation with your agent, but at a certain point, it's like we need the contract to get to the next step for the deeper brainstorming. A lot of times, the deeper brainstorming is happening when we've agreed that we want to work together. We've agreed on there's a budget that's in there, and then maybe you have an addendum for like other budget things that might come up based on approvals in order to execute on it. That's part of the production cost. So this is what it's going to cost for my time, my platform, right? And what I typically do, if you want above and beyond what I typically do, we're going to have additional budget against that. It's going to have to get approved, right? Or you get someone on a consulting retainer. This is where like we need to start looking at creators as consultants. So if you want to pick my brain and go back and forth before a budget, then hire me as a consultant for a month. And then we'll build out what we're actually doing. That's the other. I actually think it's more simple than people make it to be.
Well, and I think that makes sense. Do you think that there's any infrastructure behind that at the scale that people are doing deals right now? Like, do people even think in those terms? Because it's kind of like, feels like the rules are different everywhere and there really are no standards and practices and expectations.
Yeah, I think that, listen, if you're a small startup brand, you're probably not doing all this stuff. That is the reality. You don't have the money or the resources. So you probably should be looking at it as, are there creators that really align with your brand? Maybe there's an equity deal, maybe there's an advisor deal, and there's discounts on any social posts that you do, but you're probably gonna have to pay something unless they're really involved and they're super passionate. But that's, more of a long-term vibe. I think some creators are willing to do, well, I am like a discount for a newer company if I really think it's really great and I know the founders and I may be working towards an advisory equity deal. But that is very unique. I think that if this is coming from an agency that's part of a public company, right, or a huge public brand, or a brand that, no offense, is in the headlines boasting about how much money they're making, then you can expect them to come to me and say, I mean, it happens. Doesn't mean just because you're making a ton of money. There's a reason why you're probably not spending as much, maybe. I don't know. You're still like, lean in terms of how you're budgeting things. But there needs to be a reasonable back and forth conversation about that. But yeah, I think that a lot of people, when I tell them this, even creators are on the other side, they're like, oh, I didn't know that could happen. Oh, I didn't know this was a model. It's like, how, this isn't rocket science. I don't get why so many people don't get it. I mean, someone like Darman gets it. As someone recently said that I thought was so interesting, the enterprise creators. So a Darman or a Colin and Samir, I think there's an assumption when I approach these folks, these creators, there's going to be representation involved. There's going to be all this stuff. Anything I ask, they're going to ask for money. We should expect the same thing from other creators. It shouldn't just be just because you've reached a certain level. Labor is labor. Hours are hours. Maybe their expense is higher. They require more money because of where they're at. But this assumption, just because you're smaller, so you should do something for free, or this can be a great opportunity. We need to get rid of this. Again, unless you're maybe a nonprofit and there's like a like-minded value exchange, or maybe a startup where there's really a deep connection. No, I think it is a principle you should always pay people, even from a discounted rate, to a bigger rate, especially at the level of a company that some of these companies are.
Um,
Period.
well represented.
Sorry.
And no, it's fine. This is great. And I'm on the buy side,
It
right? So
annoys
this is a cool exchange. What's that?
Are you learning? Is this that mind-blowing new? I don't get I feel like it's pretty
Well, listen,
normal.
I mean, here's something. So let me give you a little background that, at least for the folks that are likely to hear and see this. Okay. So Oxford Road's an ad agency.
Mm,
Our background. So the people that kind of came together to make this happen, myself, not the least of which, we came out of radio. Radio had a model where you had endorsements and you had spots. And an endorsement, you might pay a certain rate for a produced ad where the host reads it, but they're not
yeah.
selling it. Then you had the endorsement where they're putting their name on it and saying, I do this and you should too. And then there was a live read thing. So you kind of had three flavors where there was a market and there were benchmarks and there were standards. Okay. Now, some of us got into podcasting very early, and we lived in this audio universe, and we were kind of this shiny part of the audio world. And I think
Okay.
we were doing influencer marketing before influencer marketing, but it didn't, it evolved differently. And only I think in the last 18 months have we kind of been co-opted into this, what we call influencer creator world. And now these worlds are coming together, mainly because YouTube was like, hi, we've got 1 billion podcast consumers a month and on the platform, and you're all, podcasters, creators, influencers. They're all, YouTube videos and podcasters are kind of being blended together. And I think it's getting harder for people to define what they do. And so like, just to go back and start with definitions, I'm interested how you see the lane lines between when you are wearing your podcaster hat, when you're talking about creators, when you're talking about influencers.
I look at it as a creator as anyone who's making money on digital and social media platforms. So a podcaster is a creator. It's just a type of creator.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creator. What do? I podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creator. What do I do? Well, I do affiliate marketing through my channels. I'm more of an affiliate creator. I'm more of obviously,
So where's the line between creator and influencer?
I believe it's kind of, they're both similar. I think that a lot of people think of a creator, if you're going to really get into the semantics and the nuances, like as more of like a storyteller. An influencer is more of like maybe selling something. But I do think they're one.
Is it kind of bullshitty though? Is it sort of like
I
nobody
do
really
think
knows
it's
the
a bit.
difference, and now we say creator because influencer was the term we used to use, and we need to always shine
I
it
think
out there.
because influencer didn't really encompass the individuals that were also a bit more storytellers or like a filmmaker, or because you could be a filmmaker and an influencer, right? And so if that's what I feel. I mean,
So
again,
if you're a personality, you're an influencer. If you're a creator, sort of in the way that like
but
you
you could be an
make
influencer
something,
too. I feel like
your work can be the product versus you are the product as influencer.
I think that, yeah, listen, when you have a no face channel,
I feel stupid that light bulb just went off on this.
I mean, there's light bulbs, yeah, that go off all the time. And even it's so funny. As much as I talk about this, I find myself saying new versions of things randomly on days like this. So there's a lot of faceless channels or people that are like, oh, I'm a creator and I help other people. I have my platform where I do photography, this, that. But yeah, they have not put themselves out there as an individual. So they're not an influencer, but they're a creator that has a channel, right? But you wouldn't know who they are, maybe. Or like, and some people have had hugely influential social platforms and only started putting themselves in front of the camera. And then that, now starts to make them an influencer on their channels. So I do think an influencer is more you are the personality, you are the face. And then, but I do think influencers are creators and creators are influencers. Like they kind of go hand in hand. And
Well,
I think
it's interesting though
stuck in
that it sounds like but the key distinction I think that's revelatory for me to think about is like the creator can make a thing that goes off and the thing is the content that gets consumed and you are the thing behind it. Nobody may know that you were involved.
Yep.
right? Whereas if you're an influencer, your face is on it, your
It
name
is
is
you.
on it. And so it seems like creator is not just a shinier way to say it, but it's actually kind of the macro umbrella, and influencer is subset, right?
That's what it is.
So what's a podcast
A well,
versus like a YouTube video?
well, YouTube video, it could have been everything from a vlog. Like I think the podcast format is people sitting down at a microphone and talking. It's like a long form talk radio show, basically.
Well, what if it's like storytelling?
Yeah, it could be storytelling too. But I think that a YouTube video at the time, it could have been anything. It could be you capturing something at a concert. It could be you capturing your pet. It could have been a vlog. It could be a niche challenge. It's not, and the idea of a podcast really evolved from, I would say, radio shows, not necessarily multi-hour radio shows, but a radio format,
I mean,
right?
that's the way that like
Or
Steve
digital.
Jobs and what started pitching it originally was like, it's like on demand radio, get it
Yeah,
anywhere. And then
exactly.
they kind of pivoted off of that and made it cooler and everything. But
Yeah, and then
yeah,
there's
I
different
do think that's how it
formats.
started.
Yeah, there's different formats under the podcast. So that's where you can have more of like a scripted, more of a show, more like, is it an interview? Is it um all of the different things that are under the podcast?
Yeah, and
Rather
that's
than,
consistent. So we actually, I
am I
asked you
getting
that
tested right now? Am I
flippantly.
getting
Well,
a
you that one,
score?
yes, yeah, you stepped into it, but but no, I think we're on the same page. The difference is, whereas I've been like hitting my head against the wall on influencer and creator on podcast because that's where we come from. Like
Yeah,
we did a study with Edison last year to see what do consumers think. We did a series called What's a Podcast, where I did long form interviews with a bunch of people that are like OGs in the space, Ira
cool.
Glass and everybody, just to be like, what do you think it is? Because everybody's perception is different. YouTube, Netflix coming in, podcast election, it's a thing. And it's like, okay, I think it needed an identity. And it's interesting, like even the Golden Globes, they just defined podcast. But by their definition, like anything you can watch on demand is a podcast. Anything in the Netflix library is a freaking podcast. So it's like nothing's a podcast if
No, I
everything's a
mean,
podcast.
like, yeah, it's true. How do you define it? I mean, it was a similar thing with the Emmys and even Oscars, where is a film on Netflix at the time or a TV show, could that be considered? And at the time, and that there was a few years where that was a fight until it was clear, well, that is the future, and films that are just exclusively on these streaming platforms could potentially get nominated. Like, I think
Yeah.
definitions shift as media shifts.
It does, but I think because you've got like budgets getting assigned and
That's
like
true.
you're measuring, we're reporting on the revenue of this industry and investment flows behind it. So like I think it helps to have some definition, even if it has to evolve. And I think it has evolved, whereas it was like an audio platform. And what we concluded just from all these
Yeah.
stakeholders, research, everything, is that basically it's rooted in the spoken word, but it can be distributed as audio only or video. And it's no
Okay.
longer married to RSS, but the spirit of it is that it's kind of open for anybody to create. It's on demand, it's episodic, and it's rooted in the spoken word. But the shorthand that we actually expect people to remember and hopefully use is that if it works with your eyes closed, it's a podcast.
But
Because
now a lot of people might not say that because it's video podcasts,
it is, but
vodcasts.
it is. But think about
Yeah.
it this way: one writer, Steve Goldstein's really good, and he was saying how the way they used to program morning news shows was
Mhm.
that you can be watching it and it's interesting to see it, but you can go brush your teeth and not be looking, and you're still getting it. Like
Yeah.
it still makes sense. Versus like if you're a vlog or something else, like if you lose the visual, you're kind of out. It doesn't really work the same way. But if you're
Mhm.
programming it for the ear first, it can still fall under that. That's the hope. Otherwise, it's like, what do we? Then everything's a podcast, then nothing's a
True. I mean,
podcast.
that's the issue now, and with all these platforms encouraging video, and then it puts a little bit of a pressure of, oh, but not just video, high quality video. Well, what does that mean? So if I have a high quality video, but if the video, what does it mean that it needs to have bells and whistles, B-roll? Now, this is where it starts to get a bit much, because what's going to happen is people are going to do long form or video,
Mm-hmm.
put it up as a podcast and say, well, now the audio is available as a podcast. So then it's just a video series.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think they've been doing that for a while
Yeah.
because, like, you can go get, Bill Maher, the podcast, and you're listening to it, and it turns out you actually don't need to see any of that. And there's a lot that I think are like that, where they're taking a TV show and they're splitting it out. But like you said, it's a talk show, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
what are you going to do? What is your favorite podcast other than the Media Roundtable? Is it Joe Rogan, Call Her Daddy, Mel Robbins, Crime Junkie, Amy Poehler, Smartless, Pivot? What are you into? It's such an interesting dinner table topic to ask people. You learn a lot, and people are so passionate about this medium. They're so passionate about it. And where do you listen? Where do you watch? Is it YouTube? Is it Apple? Is it Spotify? You are in the center of what we do as an organization. That is our business. We are Oxford Road, and we help some of the leading brands in the world be successful advertising in these channels. We're the largest specialist that exists. We buy the most ads in this channel. So we are actually powering this industry. We buy over $500 million of ads per year for wonderful brands like Shopify, Wayfair, DraftKings, Masterclass, Chime, Quince, AG1, Mint Mobile. We're interrupting all your favorite podcasts, including not just the usual suspects, but there are thousands in the long tail that are great niche shows with really loyal audiences. And what happens is when you advertise there, the host really only gets to pick one in your category. And so if you're the first there, you can kind of lock up that relationship, that annuity, and be recommended to those audiences for years. So it's a powerful space. And it's one where we have the privilege of leading right now. We've got lots of great ways to de-risk our clients' campaigns, like our Orbit data set that's getting close to $2 billion of performance data. So we know what's going to work in advance. We also have Audiolytics, which are our proprietary ad grading system to make sure every word counts and is always getting optimized, and then de-risked through our brand safety taxonomy as well, to make sure we watch out for your brand values. If you want to win in this channel, and you've got something to say, you got a product worth talking about, and you want to get into this trust economy, and you're serious about it, you really want to be a part of it over the long haul, we'd love to talk to you. OxfordRoad.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter if you like free stuff. It's called The Influencer, and it's free. We also have a lot of good thought pieces if you want to learn at OxfordRoad.com. That is OxfordRoad.com. All right, let's talk a little.
Let's pivot.
Huh?
So let's pivot.
Let's pivot. Well, because there's so much with you, and like I'll have you back every day if you'll come. But like,
I used to do a daily radio show. You're talking to
Where
someone
did you
that
do
was
a
in the
radio show?
I was working with Odyssey. I had an afternoon drive radio show for an HD2 station.
Oh,
From 2018 to 2022. It was
thank
like
you for trying the HD radio.
we were like the bastard child at the company. Like we were like the black sheep. Like literally, we always had the least budget. We were,
Well, because that was like the destination of destinations. That was like, you got to work to get that into somebody's mind.
Is that it was also for an LGBTQ talk music station, which the effort to bring that to life was amazing. But then you're like, and you're going to put it on the sub station that's hard to get. So you're like supporting the community, but then like it was a good effort, and actually it's still going. And I'm really appreciative. Listen, for the opportunity. I was there for 4 years.
We love Odyssey.
They let me still do my company. I was doing all my other things.
Just tell them about streaming.
Well, yeah, like that was the thing is they also would do our 4-hour radio show. They would cut down to a podcast.
Yeah.
But it wasn't made to be a podcast. And so unless you're a Howard Stern level.
But you can stream it. You can stream it. You can be in your car and you can listen. Yeah,
people were streaming it. You streamed it on the app. But I feel like for where podcasts are at and what people are tuning into, you have such a specific strategy for that. Again, unless you're a breakout viral moment or a 1%, like the biggest talent, a radio show, are people going to be tuning into a 4-hour talk break show that you just edited together every single day, unless it's a top, you know what I mean? Like it, it needs
It's
to
a
already
big
have
ask. It's a big
established it,
ask. Yeah.
or like have a big guest and an established following in that way. Even with social following, the conversion to download an app and then do X, Y, and Z. It's just like you need to have a full on strategy
You
for
need an
that.
instruction manual
Social
to
posts,
consume it.
but
By
also
the way,
social
like this was
assistant,
the whole
all
thing
that.
with podcasting though, like, right? It was hard to listen to a podcast in the early days because you had to plan ahead, you had to
Yeah.
download it to your little device and then walk around and feel cool listening to it. But that was difficult and it took forethought and planning and pushing buttons you wouldn't ordinarily push. It's a big ask for people to do.
Yeah. And we had some of that overlap, but like, in the end, there needed to be more resources to be having, okay, what are we doing on social every day to push people to that? What are we like? There was only so many people, time, and resources.
I tried
And
to push
so
people to smart speakers because I thought the flash briefings were a real opportunity. You know what I'm
flash
talking
brief,
about?
no.
Okay, so on your Alexa device, if
Oh
you
yeah.
say, "Hey Alexa,
Yeah.
play CNN" or whatever,
Yeah.
like now all of a sudden there's a 2-minute news bit that's like a highlight, and right?
I was trying to sell that with what's trending. Let's talk. I was trying to do that forever where, hey, what's trending? Oh, hey, what's the news? And like, which trending reports came up?
Yes,
Of course,
yes.
there's also huge legacy companies like NBC News and CBS News, but I was trying to do that with Odyssey. I'm really giving you the inside scoop. We tried. I still am close with them, but yeah, no cigar.
They're good people, and they got a nice office on Wilshire, and we do a lot with them.
There we go.
Love our friends at Odyssey. But listen, I was at iHeart
Yeah.
and like I was kind of like, why are we doing the HD radio? Because we had this competing thing with streaming where everybody could get to a stream. And so if you want to use the HD channel, great. If you get people to do that, great. But if it's not built in and I have to push too many buttons,
Yeah.
get them to push the button that they're already pushing and we'll get it's one less reason, like obstacle we have to
I
get over,
agree.
right? But it's a cool concept and it's such a beautiful space, and I do think there's a resurgence waiting to happen in local and specialized streams because everything is on demand and podcast. But the problem is you have to think about kind of wiring together all your faves. But if
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm in a health mood, why can't you just start streaming that channel? And I think like a kind of original Pandora for podcasting and
Oh,
also having that
hmm.
for local content is still like local media we know is like dying, but then it will be reborn. And I'm excited for the rebirth.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree with that. I think that we think that everyone knows what they actually want to watch, and maybe sometimes that's true, but a lot of times no. Like
Turn
the
on the
people that do,
channel and let it
yeah,
run. Yeah.
exactly. They want to be curated, they want to discover, or they just want to do less work. Like all of us have less time, less work. When you're about to drive, and you have you're busy with your kid there. I don't have kids yet, but like, you're just like, what can I just throw on quickly? Like it was
Yeah.
so easy in the radio days, even though people think it's easy now because they'll just have whatever they like. But I don't know. I am probably one of the last elder millennials that still had a love for radio. I would listen to Loveline in LA every night when I had a long drive home. I'm still a student of the craft,
Mm-hmm. Well, I
broadcasting
appreciate
craft.
that. I'm a
Yeah,
Gen
anyway.
Xer because spent 2 weeks and 3 days in the '70s. So I'm an old soul as well, and desirous of going back to the time that you could actually have like a finite number of choices, and you didn't have
No.
to spend your evening like scrolling to select something that you may not start. Bill of Rights. Why did you do it? Why
And
did you
that
do
goes
the Bill of
actually,
Rights?
this is a great segue into mental health. So many
Yes,
choices, so many distractions.
so many
We're
choices.
doom scrolling. You
Yes.
know, uh, it's impacting obviously the mental health of youth we're seeing, even though there's still a debate around that and the studies around that and the data. Side convo. But
Are
it's
you saying there's two sides to that argument? Like maybe it's not destroying our minds?
there is another side, and because of Section 230 and how this law protects these companies from getting sued, and how
Yeah, yeah.
there are lawmakers that want to change that because they feel like they should be held liable for certain things and responsible. I mean, there's a whole thing, and then that
Where are
versus
you at
freedom
on
of
that?
speech. I think we need a balance. Of course, I want freedom of speech. Of course, there's fear of the more laws you create, that will infringe on all of us. There's this sense, a veil of protection, but in the wrong hands, it could lead to censorship. I totally get that. But I think doing nothing and not tweaking old laws is ridiculous and ignorant. I also think that we need more research done and more investment into the right research to really understand how these things that we use daily are impacting us, and really understanding how we solve that. Because there's a loneliness crisis, there's the mental health crisis. We're seeing people's brains change because of using these tools, and then AI. So saying that, well, there's not enough data to really say there's a full, was it correlation? I just don't think that's fully true, although there is a nuance to that. Like, of course, if people have or more susceptible to things, or are predisposed,
Sort
these
of
are
like
things to take into account.
comorbidities for mental health in a
Yeah, but like
sense.
but again, we need to take that into account. But we also need to look at where we're at now with all of this and where we were before, and how are things different? And then how do we set ourselves up to win? I haven't gone into the Creator Bill of Rights, but I use the metaphor of being in a gym.
Yeah.
And people working out, it's working for them. People are getting their muscles. They love the gym. And then imagine that gym had 50% of the people working out were getting hurt. Would you turn a blind eye to the 50% that were getting hurt just because there's 50% of the people that are fine? Or even, let's not say 50, let's put it down to 30%. Like 3 in 10 people, you're looking around even your circuit class, right? Orange Theory. And you're seeing 3 people that are basically on the floor, not just dying, dying because they're just like, out of breath, but like hurting themselves. And maybe they're getting, whatever is happening, saying, oh, let's just ignore those people. We're going to just go on along our merry way because working out clearly like is good for more of us. You'd be like, something's going on if this is consistently happening. And, 35 to 50% of people, and whatever the stats are getting hurt. And I do think social media is similar to that. So we need to create guidelines to set the people up that keep getting hurt or predisposed to better utilize these things, because it's part of their lives. Or yes, have warnings, or have a knowledge of when they're using it. At this point, it starts being unhealthy or not good for them. Like at that point in the gym, you would have signs: caution, if you are this age, this weight, this height, I don't know, you haven't had this experience, you probably don't want to use this, or get some help, get some support. Let us help you with this with a trainer. We need to be looking at our social media behavior in the same way.
Well, I just want to say it back and make sure I'm with you, because as we talk about the Bill of Rights piece, that was more for the creators
That's for
themselves.
creators for mental health. But
and in that case, we're talking
yes,
about like the trainers are on the floor, but you're also talking about how the fact that like we clearly have a problem, we don't really understand the problem, and it may not be so binary as good, bad,
exactly.
230, no 230. Maybe there's like a third way we actually haven't done the brain damage
yes.
to get to
And
yet.
I think nuance is so important, especially with all of this. But of
With
course, we
life.
don't like that. We don't like that.
No, good or bad. Come on, what's your make it black and white for me.
Black and white. Exactly. And I think the third way allows us to take all this into account and adjust. And again, maybe we're not going to get to like the exact ideal, but we need to make small adjustments as we figure things out that are open to flexibility. And I've worked a bit in learning more about how the EU works. And I really appreciate how they look at innovation and new technology. They sometimes take a swing at the extreme, but then they're really some of the first folks to say, ooh, we tried this. We've already learned some things in the first 6 months to a year, and we're adjusting. Whereas, do we do that here? No. They're not perfect, clearly. But I think that their approach to tech and innovation has been interesting, especially, the UK as well. That said, so I think it is, when we talk about mental health and creators for mental health, we all talk about the users, but then this is where I add in this layer. Creators and digital creatives are not just users. I mean, all of us are on this too. but we're also workers. So what has intrigued me also with this work with Creators for Mental Health is how do we better understand what it's like to be a digital gig worker? And that's a lot of, the research and the studies that I've done have been around that in order to inform the work, because the creator economy is a growing industry. We all know this, like big headlines, $500 billion industry by 2030, 1.5 million full-time content creators in the US and growing, according to the IAB. So many big numbers, right? So much money going into it.
A lot of things. Yeah.
A lot of things. But it in the trenches of it, there's a lack of infrastructure and support. And that is wild to me, considering the maturation of this industry and how quickly it's evolving. And
So you're kind of like a unionizer you're like the Jimmy Hoffa of the creator economy. Is that fair?
Yes. And again, you say there's so many things that I'm doing. That's because my career has changed over 20 years. I was a broadcaster, and I still have a passion for that. So that's the problem. I'm a tourist. I don't let go of things. But I'm very loyal to the things I do.
Yes.
So, I'm a small business owner. I'm a creator and a broadcaster. And then I also see gaps in the industry because I've been in it long enough. I'm at the age, I'm like, what do we do about it? I got to the point where I was so sick of having panels about mental health, because I was doing a lot of panels about this and talking to other creators, and we have events, and we're blah, 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 vent. And I go, what are we doing? Like, I literally am going to go crazy. It's like talking about the same thing without actually solving it. And so that the past 2 years has been a pivot of how do we go from talking to action, basically. And that's what's inspired me with this work. And that's what led to it. I didn't know where it was going to lead. And then it led to now me putting a title around it, because that's easier for people to take in, around creator advocacy.
And you actually somehow you got Congress to pay attention to this thing. Like, what was that about? I mean, good, at least great marketing. What did you do?
Right place, right time. No, it's a lot of what all the work, it's putting in all the work to get to that moment.
Yeah.
It's nothing's an overnight success. It's how many years in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah. But basically what happened was I met with Congressman Khanna. Actually, he reached out after Kamala Harris lost. And there was somehow I ended up on some sort of email list with a bunch of other creators. So I got on this Zoom, and I kept in touch with his team. And then I was in DC, I met with them and was like, oh, next time I'm here, I want to interview him. Well, I happened to be there in person again, May of 2025. And I was launching Creator Care, which is our discounted sliding scale therapy service for creators for mental health. If you're in California, you're a creator, you work in the creator economy, you don't have a full-time job, check out creatorcare.co, discounted therapy with or without insurance. Anyway, so I was telling him about this because it happened to be the day I launched, or the day after, timing. I also happened to be raising some sponsor money for this research study. I think I just maybe got my first sponsor. We were in the middle of that. So again, I was saying how doing the research now, we're already seeing from the qualitative data that creators are burnt out, that, they're struggling. Plus we have this, and he goes to me as I'm talking to Congressman Khanna, because I had to interview him, but obviously I had to share what I was up to. He goes, well, it seems like you need a Bill of Rights. I said, well, I guess I didn't think about that. Like, seems pretty hoity-toity. Like, do we? He goes, yeah, you're a workforce, you're workers. And because there's a lack of, I was even talking to SAG earlier today. SAG is one solution. It's not the be all end all, because unlike actors, you have the writers, like we do a bit of everything. And we're very fragmented as well. So we need lots of different solutions. So SAG is one. I'm also an advisor to Creators Guilds of America now, NAB Creator Council, which I actually missed that call for this. So thanks.
Thank you for that.
Anyway, so he said that, and I go, if you're going to do it, I don't want to hear about this in 6 months and you launch it. You need to work with us on it. And so it happened that I had mentioned something. There was another creator, Lysandra Vasquez, that mentioned it too. So we all came together. And it was very collaborative. We did a draft together. We were on Google Docs with his legislative team. And it was awesome. I wish more things were done in that way. And then, of course, it was like Epstein files, this, that. We don't have time. There was all of last year, the second half of
Yeah.
the year was busy. And then we finally launched it in January. And now we're getting co-sponsors, and there's other kind of laws that are being brainstormed that are maybe lower hanging fruit for bipartisanship. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm learning a lot.
That's awesome. And I know I don't get to keep you for more phone calls that
Yes.
you're missing for this, but one thing
Sorry.
I'll just share is so this podcast I started doing it in 2020, and the
Yeah.
reason was we had a lot of relationships that we had forged between brands and podcasters, our
Yeah.
creators, and 2020 happened and things got a little crazy and advertisers started making like sweeping cancellations. Nobody that's got a political opinion, nothing that is news. And all of a sudden, like large swaths of media are getting defunded, bridges are getting burned, relationships are getting discarded over very arbitrary reasons. And so what I started doing is saying, like, okay, how did we get so divided? What does media have to do with it? And how can advertisers function as a bit of a fifth estate and maybe be a check on media in a healthy way? And where do we draw lines? And what ended up happening is I ended up talking to people, people running news bureaus, people at the New York Times, people, a lot of podcasters, a lot of executives, just talking to everybody using this podcast as an open lab,
Mhm.
left, right, and center. I mean, you'd be amazed some of the people we had on. And what I concluded was that we really do need nutrition labels, but it's very hard because you can't have like ownership bias, you can't have political bias, like you need to
Yeah.
have things that are and like you can't legislate for misinformation because no one will ever even agree on what that is. So like one small thing we did was we co-developed and we got somebody to do the technical build on something called a civility score, which basically measured one metric, which is ad hominem attack in content. And if an advertiser can use that to measure how much people are getting attacked by a creator in their show, like either a group of people, protected class of people gets accelerated, or individuals, if you're throwing stones at somebody in your content, somebody's going to throw them back at you. Advertisers going to get hit in the middle. And if you can actually measure that, which is knowable, it's
Yeah.
not up for debate if you're doing it, you can actually avoid a lot of the political polarization. You can avoid a lot of misinformation just by using that one hero metric. But then we created a whole taxonomy, and it's something we've kind of not put our all into lately because we've been working on standardizing definitions, impression measurement across
Yeah.
platforms, stuff like that. We've been doing a lot of that type of industry work. At some point I want to pick up with you because I think the creator economy is nobody's paying that much attention since like the GARM framework died a couple years ago. Don't know if you paid attention to that, but
No,
that was
I
a
don't
whole
know.
thing that brands were using that doesn't
Yeah,
exist
I think
anymore.
someone's mentioned this to me. Yes, continue.
I think it's going to be, I think when we get post Trump or close to post Trump, I think brand safety is going to be a thing again. And I think the creator economy needs a solution because brands are going to need a way to understand what they are affiliating with. And right now they don't really have something they can trust. And so it's something I'd like to cliffhanger for the future
At the
conversation.
same time, by the way, if you go on like so many influencer marketing platforms, and I've checked um, the back end, there will be with AI and whatever uh, tech they've built, it will say, "Oh, this
It's
influencer
all
creator
bullshit.
is affiliated with political content." Like
Yeah.
I had that. I looked at mine on a platform, and I had that. But like you
You
would
would
think
say that about this conversation though. If like,
exactly, like we need to
and
be
so how you
smarter
ask the
about it.
question is everything. How you ask the question is everything.
Yeah, there's a difference between, oh, they're open, like, and you would think AI would be smart enough or whatever tech that people are building, be like, oh, they're affiliated with this. Maybe they talk a lot about this party or they do this. Like, we need to start having more details and nuance because to look at a quick, and this is what happens with campaigns. You're building
Yes.
it so quickly and you're looking at the back end, blah, blah, engagement. Okay, it's the same demos. Like, okay, I'm going to put them up as a sample talent. I have to put together 100 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they have a
It,
flag Oh, I don't even want to deal with that to get the brand angry. And so actually a lot of good creators are being left out and not, and not
guilt
being
by
monetized.
association. over sweeping judgments. And so we need nuance, and I think AI can actually do it now in a way that does it, but there has to be like a framework that actually makes sense. And right now there hasn't been, and we've actually patented some work on this, but like I'd like to workshop with you. And, and like I said, I like to use this show as an open lab. I'd like to, have a part 2 with you at some point and get into stuff like that, get into more of what you're doing with creators, and here I like, really go a few levels deeper on what's going on the labor side of the creator economy, but also more about what you think should be the expectations of people that are supporting it commercially. So Shira, thank you for coming to the Media Roundtable. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road. You know what we do here? We help marketers succeed in podcasting, audio, creator media. How do you want to define it? We believe that influence is powerful. Your voice is powerful. And it comes with a responsibility to advance content that doesn't just entertain, but also edifies. A lot of what we were talking about today. If you want to align your brand values with extraordinary business outcomes, please visit oxfordroad.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's called The Influencer. We'd love to hear from you. info@mediaroundtable.com. We also have Ad Infinitum, all about creative, hosted by Stu Redwine. Comes into the feed now and again. Special thanks to our guests, Shira Lazar, but also it took a village to pull this together, like producer Haley, Bianca, Rocio, Kyle, Ezra, Everett, Neil, and the team of Podcast One. As always, influence responsibly.